Welcome to our first webinar as part of the Aspire series at Locale. For those of you who aren't as familiar with Locale, we have been at the pinnacle of PropTech for over 17 years now, and founded on the core values of honesty, integrity, and digital innovation. Our portfolio comprises over 80 million square feet of commercial, residential, and mixed-use real estate across UK and Ireland. Some of you might be wondering where Guy is because he was penned down to be moderating, but due to unforeseen circumstances, I'll be stepping in. My name is Rishi Banerjee, and I'm the Group Communications and Marketing Director for Locale, and it really is a pleasure and a privilege to be chairing today's session. Having worked within the real estate sector for most of my career, the one thing that really struck me is the lack of diversity, be that gender, race, sexual orientation, and how many times have we heard that, but not really seen it in action? Well, at Locale, we practice what we preach, with women comprising almost 50% of the workforce and representing 56% of the leadership, senior leadership. We really do boast a gender diverse and culturally vibrant team. And moreover, we're really thrilled to be hosting an all-female panel talking about real estate and tech. This session really came to fruition when we were discussing the misconceptions around adoption of tech and also its sustainability. Borrowing some of the words from our CEO, Guy, the perception of embracing tech is often connected to going for the next kind of shiny toy that will wow everybody. But really, what happens next? And how can real estate and tech work in unison and be long-term bedfellows? Well, that's what we plan to unpack, and I have the honor of introducing today's panel. First of all, Susan Freeman, partner of Mishcon Reya, an experienced real estate lawyer with an in-depth understanding of the property market and business training. Susan is a member of the Mishcon Technology Group, which has launched MDR Lab, an incubator program for tech startups in the legal space. She also mentors for Pi Labs and is a regular speaker on the PropTech circuit. Susan is vice chair of the British Property Federation, and its Technology and Innovation Group. She's also a member of the Urban Land Institute Technology and also the Real Estate European Product Council, and also sits on the advisory board for Property Week. She hosts the popular Property She podcast, where she interviews some of the top influencers who define and make a difference to the real estate industry and built environment. Welcome, Susan. Next up is Nikki Yates, Head of Occupier Services at MAPP. Nikki joined MAPP in spring 2021 from Boodle Hatfield's property litigation team. She brings a strong blend of facilities management and property management skills, having held previous roles with Nelson Bakewell and a global communications and sports marketing occupier. With a passion for great service for occupiers and an unparalleled understanding of property management practices, service charges, and traditional lease clauses, Nikki works across teams on site and all those who serve the needs of occupiers to deliver a great service. Welcome, Nikki. Next up is Harri John, Head of Digital Advisory at CBRE. Sitting at the intersection of real estate, technology, and business challenges, Harri is pivotal in helping clients think more strategically about their real estate and the role of digital and technology in achieving better outcomes for their portfolios, workplaces, buildings, businesses, and of course the industry. She's co-founder of Creation Property Network, creating and enhancing opportunities for people just starting out in the property sector, seeking to improve diversity and inclusion. And finally, but not least, Gemma Armsden, Project and Integration Manager at Warwick Estates. Gemma has worked in the industry for over 14 years and throughout her time has experienced roles both off and on site. In the past, she has managed over 150 on-site staff in London at varying size developments and has seen the technology used in these buildings change a lot over the years. She now has a role that focuses on the onboarding of new build developments, and creating communities within these spaces. Welcome, Gemma, and welcome to everybody this morning. Thank you so much for sparing some time to join us for our first webinar. So we've got a packed agenda, and I'm going to kick off, if I may, with looking at, and before we look at various stages of the journey, I wanted to look at kind of real estate's current relationship with tech. So, Susan, I thought if I could come to you first, and if you could just share with us your thoughts on, what that relationship is like and the perception out there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rishi. Yes, I mean, big question. I was thinking about this, and I was just thinking about how far we've actually moved in the last 4 or 5 years. And I was thinking back to one of the first Future PropTech conferences in London, where we literally had to sort of form a working group to try and get some of the property companies to come to a tech conference, because they couldn't see why it affected them. And things have moved on, but I'm thinking even now at MIPIM, you still have a separate agenda for PropTech. You have to go and find the PropTech exhibitors down in the basement of the bunker. So you either have to elect for one circuit or the other. Even the events and the parties are completely separate. So I think real estate is still regarded as something of a dinosaur industry, although we have made progress. And I was looking at the first podcast interview I did when I started the series, I think in 2019, was with Brendan Wallace, who's one of the co-founders of Fifth Wall, and he was talking about the perception that real estate had sat on the sidelines for 2 decades of innovation of the internet and hadn't changed. So it was seen, from a PropTech point of view, as an industry where there were huge opportunities. So I think we've really moved on. Certainly the larger, the property REITs and the funds are leading and investing in PropTech. And I think CTOs, chief technical officers, are now being taken seriously. Whereas, if I think about the conversations we had around future PropTech, I had one of the tech directors who was, he said he thought he was going to go into a property company, effect, technical change, but he realized he had to change the culture first, that there was just no acceptance of the fact that we needed to move forward and change. And the attitude was, it works, why do we need to change things? And in fact, I remember we first spoke to some of our property clients when we wanted to digitalize, and we said, we've done all the work on the lease reports, we can just press a button and everything will come straight through to you. And one of them said, well, we don't need to do that because we've got our accounts clerks and they manually upload all the information. So I think we've moved on from that mindset. And I mean, investment in UK PropTech in 2021, I think, was around 1.6 billion, which basically quadrupled what went into it in 2020. I think it may be, coming down a little bit now because of all the current circumstances. And I think if anybody had any doubt what's happened with COVID and the pandemic and what's happening with sustainability, there is no turning back now. I think everybody accepts, even the most Luddite property companies accept, that we need technology to take us forward. The problem is going to be the cost, I think, because if you're a cash-strapped smaller property company and you're told that your office buildings aren't fit for purpose, you've got to make a huge investment in technology. Where do you go? Where do you start? How do you afford it? So, I think that's probably something we're going to be talking about on this panel.
Harri, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it's a great overview, Susan, and I definitely see the same in the occupier world. We've definitely moved forward leaps and bounds, and companies are no longer seeing technology as a nice to have. It is a must have. It's a core part of their agenda. When we're talking about strategies, we're talking about the physical, the human, and the digital that brings those two things together. But what I'm seeing between clients is there is a real difference between the mature clients and those clients that are not yet taking enough of a step forward on their journey. So I'll speak to some clients who still see digital and technology as something that IT teams need to deal with. So they understand the importance, but they are not having as much ownership and accountability for the business outcomes from technology within their companies. And that's where the challenges lie versus some of the more mature companies, which are starting to bring digital skills and expertise within their real estate functions and departments, and really understanding the outcomes that they want to achieve first from their workplaces and their portfolios, and then working backwards to say, how can technology help me to get those better outcomes? And it's a partnership between those organizations, those functions. So I'd say you've got the divergence between the mature and those still starting their journey.
Thanks, Harri. Nikki, did you want to mention anything generally?
Well, I just would agree with Harri completely, that, you know, everybody is in a different place in their journey, and it depends on the particular client. You know, there's particular occupiers in that particular building, really. Certainly at MAPP, we really, you know, encourage, and we look at all our buildings and determine, you know, what we can do to improve it, really. And I think that's, you know, like Susan said, I think things have moved on so massively. When I was, you know, in FM 15, 20 years ago, I mean, goodness, it wasn't even spoken about. So, you know, in that you know, relatively short period of time, really, when you think about it, things have changed hugely, which I think is, you know, so much for the better, really. We need to catch up on our work life from our personal life, don't we? And we're all very familiar with apps and things in our personal life. So I think we, you know, it's all heading in that direction, isn't it? And I think we are sort of catching up. Yeah, I completely agree that everybody's on a different path.
Gemma?
Yeah, I agree with what all the ladies say. I think for me as well, I think I love to see, you know, technology moving on and moving forward, and we've seen that a lot. I've seen it so much in the last 14, 15 years. I feel that what companies have to get better at is supporting that tech and training their staff on that tech, and that's got to be a business cost that they have to consider from the word go, not just, yeah, well, we'll just introduce this, like as you mentioned before, a shiny new toy, but then don't invest to maintain that toy and keep it going and keep it working and make sure everybody knows how to use it. You have very different skill sets throughout a workforce, and some may not be technologically minded. However, I feel like with right training, everybody can move forward with technology. It's just making sure it's maintained by the business.
And can I just sort of jump in there? I mean, it's a good point, Gemma, about getting people used to technology. And one of the things we started about 4 or 5 years ago is our MDR lab, which is an incubator for tech startups. And it works on, you know, both ways. It gets the startup is able to work with the business, actually trial the product and tweak it. And from the point of view of our people, they get to work with technology. And so even the people that say, oh no, you know, I've always done it this way, I don't want to change, they suddenly see all the efficiencies and advantages that come from working with technology. So, you know, that's worked really well.
And again, I love that culture point is so important. You can't put technology in a building for the sake of it because it is that shiny new object or shiny new toy, because then it doesn't get used because they don't see what's in it for me. That doesn't have a problem to solve for. So actually seeing clients getting more educated around how they define the problem first, or what outcome they want, what do they need to solve for, and then being able to tell the story about this is why we're putting this technology in, or this is the value it's going to bring, so that people adopt it more, so that people understand why they should use it. That's what's starting to really excite me about the whole journey that we're on. It's just getting a bit more strategic and having less failed pilots, having less technology deployments and implementations that just don't go anywhere because someone has said, oh, this is cool, I want to do this thing, and it's delivered no value. And that almost links into the ROI point, or the defining value, is we need to be thinking about value from technology in a slightly different way. And I think that companies are starting to explore more understandings and more metrics around value beyond just financial return on investment.
I also think the product provider has to recognize that they're providing this technology to a business, and they've got an obligation to recognize that those businesses have staff turnover, and should that be included within their product is annual training, or quarterly training, whatever it may mean, depends what the product is. But I feel like that would be a big sell for me if I was looking at different techs, what the product offered, and then what the training was along with that, because the property management industry, particularly in the likes of London, has quite a high staff turnover, and to have someone retraining on certain things, where actually now we're using webinars so much more and online training sessions, that's what all it would take a lot of the time. But to have those where you can communicate with someone back and forth as well, so it's not just a watch a video and you'll learn everything, because there's always questions when it comes to technology. And also I think those people on the ground who are using that technology can come up with some good ideas for the product provider as well. They're like, oh, can it do this? No, but we could think about that for the future. So I think that's there's a responsibility on that side, as well as the businesses investing.
Do you think there's a generational element? Because I remember sort of early on in lockdown talking about the CEOs of one of the big property agencies, and saying, the worst thing is the technology is there. We've got technology in the office to use, but people don't want to use it. So I'm sort of wondering whether younger generation coming through, more used to technology, is just going to use it without thinking about it.
I think so. I think it's a real there was a joke of in a place I worked once, and it's not in the property management industry, but we were did you ever get training on that system? And no, we all worked there for 5 and 6 years, still waiting for that training. And it was like, we put this great system in place, we've got to know how to use it. And some people will pick it up more, or some people will have come in from a different company and used that system, and they share that knowledge. And I think it's the point, the businesses have to take advantage of those people as well, who use those systems a lot more, share that knowledge with the rest of your workforce and show them the advantages of it. But there also has to be that standardization across the board of how you're using that technology. So if you've got a property management system in place, everybody's got to be using it to the same standard. Otherwise, again, you're not making the most of your product.
I think a big part of that is the case for change. So new entrants to the workforce are much more willing to adopt new things because they haven't got that established way of doing something, and they are very open. But for those people who have perhaps been doing a role and not using technology for it, and they're maybe set in their ways or something like that, actually building that case that says, this is the way that you're doing it now, here are the challenges, this is where you want to go in the future, and this is how this is going to help you, this is the value it's going to bring. So that case for change is probably one of the most important tools, alongside the training that you provide for technology adoption. And it's often something that's kind of left behind. We might just implement new technology and say, here, have some training on it, but we miss out the why change bit.
And Harri, you mentioned change, and I think one of the problems with the real estate sector is that people are resistant to change and really not prepared to experiment. I mean, not prepared to run the risk of failure. So it isn't a culture where people can say, well, look, let's try this. And also there's the expense side of it. But I think in other sectors people are more willing to try things and go, because you have to, sometimes it's not going to work.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think it's really important, isn't it, that Yeah, and like you say, it's, you know, it can't just be a shiny new toy. It's got to work for everybody. It's got to add value, and it's you know, it should create efficiencies, I think, and I think it's really important for those that are going to be using it. You know, it's not just sort of delivered and dumped in their lap. You've got to do that training. You've got to get their buy-in, because they're the ones that can use it to its full potential, and then encourage, you know, if you're looking at an occupier portal, encourage occupiers to register and log in and have a look at it, because if you don't have buy-in from the people, you know, they're actually using it day in, day out, it's a losing battle.
In terms of identifying, you know, tech solutions, do you think though that perhaps also adoption is kind of tricky because it's not as consultative? Maybe the decision-making level and who actually implements and uses it, there's a bit of a disconnect there. Is that something that that is you know, perhaps another, you know, sort of issue or a challenge?
I think there's a lot of challenges around that specific question, and they present themselves in a number of different ways. So, you know, some clients, they will have people on the ground who'll identify a problem, and they'll want to find a tech solution, and they'll want to pilot it. And the challenge that business has is that they've got lots of people running around doing things in a disconnected way, solving very siloed problem statements, and they haven't taken a step back and looked at a holistic view of what are we doing around technology, what are the problems we're solving for, and how can we do this in a joined up way. So you create silos by doing it that way, especially if there isn't a clear decision maker around kind of PropTech, for example. But then the flip side to that is you can also have the instance where someone will make a decision, or they'll want to do a PropTech rollout, but they haven't understood the challenge on the ground or the problem they're solving for, and they haven't spoken to the people who would be using it day to day. And so it always needs to be a mixture of you need to have a top-down strategy and a top-down view of where you're going and who's making a decision, and someone accountable for bringing it all together. But that needs to be built through a bottom-up understanding of where are you now, what are the problems you're solving for, what's the case for change. So it's bringing together that bottom-up and that top-down view, and that's how you have a successful tech implementation.
I couldn't agree more with Harri on that one, because I've seen it where there's on this particularly like large buildings which have, you know, might have a number of requirements, whether it's communication with leaseholders, key holding, you know, parcel holding, that kind of thing. You might have a developer going, yeah, we really want the best technology in for this, and we really like these people because of X, Y, and Z. And then you speak to a concierge who uses that system, and we don't like that system because of X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't work for us. And you need to marry the two opinions together to get the right solution, I think.
Nikki, did you want to add anything to that? Oh, I think she's frozen. Can't see what's happening. Anyway, I will go on to, so I think talking about identifying the need for tech, you know, we've obviously talked about the strategy, but also, you know, with obviously the new direction, you know, with hybrid working, Susan, I know you wanted to touch on sort of, you know, that, and where do you see kind of, you know, tech being needed there and being applied? Oh, you're on mute.
That's unusual. Yes, so hybrid working and where we're going to get up is obviously an ongoing challenge at the moment, and you know, we're all sort of, you know, looking at the return to the office figures, trying to work out what's going on, but I think the feeling is that if people have a choice, they don't necessarily have to be in the office 5 days a week. Then the office has got to be, you know, the most, you know, technical place. There's got to be sort of incredible sort of tech in the office to make you want to come there. So I mean, if you've got sort of a better Wi-Fi connection and a better setup at home, why would you come to the office for your meetings? But I think we were very lucky to have Zoom and Teams when we went into lockdown, and it was quite a revelation. I can't say that I particularly used Zoom before lockdown, but it's going to get a lot better. And hybrid meetings at the moment are a little bit difficult, because you try and give a level playing field, but you don't have quite the same position in the meeting if you're a little picture up on the screen. I think the technology is going to have to get a lot better, and it's interesting looking at the flex operators and how they're adapting and what they're doing. And I know I was talking to Elliot Gold at Work Life, and they said they're busy putting Zoom rooms in, because that's what people want. They don't necessarily need a big meeting room, but they certainly need Zoom rooms. So I think we are going to see some amazing new technology. I mean, the problem is it's expensive. So if you're a corporate and you're trying to decide where to spend your money, yes, you can have state-of-the-art hybrid meeting rooms, but it comes at a cost. So that is a hybrid working, actually connecting the people that are working from home or working near home with the colleagues that are in the office. And I think there's going to be some interesting technology coming down the road, which involves algorithms, which will be telling you how you should arrange your week, depending on what your other work colleagues are doing, what's going on during that week. And so it won't be left to chance, even down to what time the train is, so what time you should actually be planning your meeting. So it all sounds a little bit Big Brother, but quite exciting. And then of course, there's a whole sort of decarbonisation side of things, which I'm sure we'll touch upon.
Just building on the hybrid working point. So I'm working with a lot of occupiers at the moment on their digital strategies, particularly to support hybrid working. And CBRE redeveloped their Henrietta House headquarters in London, and I built the digital strategy there. And one of the core drivers and why we needed a digital strategy was because we are moving to this new way of working, and digital, again, it's a must-have now. But again, it goes back to the very first point, which is people are getting more mature around how they're viewing digital and technology, because right at the beginning, people would be asking you for a whole list of smart building solutions or a whole list of digital workplace technologies. And the list is very long. One client we worked with, there was like 80 different technologies they could be putting in across their portfolio to support them. That's ridiculous. You're never going to be able to spend money on all of those things. And so what we had to do when we were doing our own headquarters was really think about what are the work style personas that are present in our office. So I created these workplace personas to understand their digital needs. Why are they coming to the office? What do they need there? And how can digital really add value to their journeys throughout the day? And that was a big part of how we then prioritized which areas of tech we invested into. We were able to build the business case for why we wanted Zoom meeting rooms in every meeting room, because hybrid meetings are going to be very, very important. And they're not just Zoom screens, they're interactive whiteboards. So you can have that collaboration with someone in the room, but also who's dialing in virtually. It was a big driver between getting increased investment into sensor technology, because people are going to be not just agile between whether they're working in the office or at home, but actually how they work within the space. Because I think a lot of us at home are used to working in different parts of our homes as well. We're no longer chained to a desk. And so what was important to us is understanding how people are using the broader space in the building so that we can make better decisions for the future. But being able to have that clear view of your use cases, the value they'll bring, is the best way to then prioritize what areas of tech investment you're going to invest into for your workplace strategy. Because there's some things you won't be able to do. So having that picture of what's a must-have now, what's a nice to have because maybe your competitors are doing it and it's important, but you don't have the budget for. But also, what's more future forward? You're not going to invest in it now, but it needs to be on your roadmap so you can keep an eye on it and see how it's evolving. Like you talked about collaboration, hybrid. we're probably going to touch on things like the metaverse, which is a big topic at the moment. You know, how can that enhance our virtual collaboration experiences in the future? It's probably not necessarily going to be the right solution for day one now, but it's something that we should be aware of, because there is a lot of depth and a lot of exploration happening in that could impact our future ways of working.
Nikki, how are you finding technology is being used, you know, across your portfolios and particularly in the office sector?
For us, I mean, the solution needs to work on two different levels, really. It needs to be working on an operational level, and also on, you know, my kind of area is that on the engagement level as well. But there's no point in us, you know, we're a property management company, we've got to make sure these buildings are working, and that, you know, that tool is creating efficiencies for our on-site building managers and staff. But, you know, talking about hybrid working, I mean, you know, our occupier portals were sort of key in that, with people not actually being in the building and being able to communicate them and, you know, assure them that what we were doing, you know, around the COVID, and that it was safe, and what does the building look like? You know, you haven't been in here for months. Let's communicate that, and let's make sure that everybody feels comfortable with what we're doing, you know, antibacterial stuff on the handles, and, you know, this is what the building looks like. This is what you're going to see when you do actually you're able to come in. So yeah, that's a key part for us. And as I say, you know, the operational versus the kind of being able to engage with your occupiers is really important.
I'm going to swiftly move on slightly from sort of, you know, identifying, you know, solutions to, you know, how do you choose a partner? And Gemma, I thought I'd come to you first on this one. You know, what are the kind of, you know, key criteria, you know, that you're looking out for when you're choosing a tech partner?
It does depend. It depends on the partners we're working with. So if I'm onboarding a brand new building, we'll have different technologies there. And just touching on what we've just been talking about there, you know, developers are now know that people are hybrid working a lot more there, and there needs to be more working at home facilities, and there are, you know, on-site meeting rooms for residential buildings now and things like that. So it depends what the services that we need to sort of collaborate with the technology, I think. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we have a developer who will have one idea, and then we'll be employing staff and talking to our other staff on the ground in similar developments, going, what do you need, what works here, what doesn't? And we almost want to go out and challenge these tech providers to show us that they can provide what we need. I think the earlier we can get providers involved, for me, is the better. And some developers are really on board with that. They really want to get the likes of Locale in early to see what they can provide and how it's going to work. Whereas other developers have costs in mind as well, and it might be a very slow phased handover. So with that in mind, you can't sort of jump in with a full package straight away sometimes. So I mean, that is not my preferred, because then you might be trying to do a manual system, and you have to get to a pinch point, and that pinch point is usually when things aren't maybe going as smoothly as they should, to then introduce tech. So that is not my ideal way of doing it at all. But yeah, it's just seeing what these providers can give us to complement the services that we want to offer, at least and also to help people manage the building, I think, as well. It's really, you know, that it all comes hand in hand. If the customer's happy because the staff on site are doing a good job, then yeah, you know, it all comes together like that.
And I guess you're also looking at not just the initial sort of adoption, is it? You mentioned before it is the long-term picture, and being assured that the provider can actually offer constant guidance, training, evolution of services as well.
Absolutely. And you could be on a 10-year build for some of these really huge developments that are happening throughout the country now. So technology is going to change in that time. So you want to progress with that, but also you also need to know as and when you are taking on certain facilities and things, and you build that into your budget. And yeah, there's a lot to consider year on year with technology. You don't just put it in place. You have to, as soon as you're doing your next service charge budget, you have to think, right, what is coming into this development this year? Do we need to include it? Do we need to upgrade? What's not working? Do we need to retender the service? So yeah, it's not a buy a product and stop. Definitely. I think that's with any technology though. It's forever changing. We're ever needing to upgrade and start our computers so we can upgrade our software. But yeah,
it's continually evolving, isn't it? And I think you've got to be confident that your PropTech partner is able to is aware of that, which I'm sure everyone is, but also that the technology can develop, so you're not just putting money into something that gets to a certain stage and then it's like kind of redundant and you've got to sort of start from scratch. So I think that's really important. I think the PropTech partner, you've got to have that collaboration, haven't you? You've got to have that two-way system of like what's working, what isn't working, like you said, Gemma, and be able to then tweak it so you'll make sure that it's working efficiently for you as possible.
Harri?
And that's almost why the skills and the people that you have involved client side are really important, because you need to have someone who understands both the real estate, the people, the business and the technology, so that you can have the right dialogue with your PropTech partner. I think the biggest challenge I've seen over the past few years is clients who have tried to implement PropTech and haven't really understood what it is that they are implementing. And so you've had the solution has not met expectations because they thought that they were getting, they thought that they were getting, predictive AI. You'd come in and your desk is already selected for you, for example, and your coffee's going to be waiting at your desk when you arrive, because that's the dream that we've been sold, and that's, the thought leadership in the market, and that is, a direction of travel. But they haven't understood that what they're getting on day one is not that. What they're getting on day one is the ability to perhaps book a desk, as an example. So that stakeholder management piece and that communications is really, really important. And having someone who understands all of those things and is able to tell the story is a critical role that needs to be in place.
I guess that neatly comes into the next bit that I wanted to just touch on, which is onboarding. Gemma, I feel like I need to come to you first on this one, because this is obviously your kind of. But for you, how do we better overcome those challenges of onboarding? Because time and time again, you do hear sort of that being a bit of a stumbling block for a lot of players. It also can be off-putting for a lot of real estate players as well. So how do you see that being improved?
I mean, for me, I think it's educating maybe the clients, maybe the customer as well, what this technology can offer. So I mean, I think a lot of customers, when they can do most things from their phone, and picking up parcels, things like that, everything can be done quite easily. They want that. They don't want to be signing, they don't want to be finding pieces of paper or anything like that, or having to show ID every time they pick up something, or they want to be a recognized customer who is on that system, and the staff know them. I think the buy-in has to be from the developer and those people building these buildings. And if they are building a complicated building with a lot of aspects and a lot of services to offer leaseholders, then or their tenants, then they've got to have the technology to support that, because you can't offer this shiny new building and not have some shiny technology to be able to manage it, in my view, because they come hand in hand now, and that's what people expect. People wouldn't go and buy a shiny new Apple computer without having the shiny software to be able to use it properly. They've got to complement each other as well. So for me, I think it's that communication piece with the client, to see as early on as possible as a managing agent. My most favorite part is that we're just about to break ground, we'd like you to get involved. Brilliant, excellent, come and talk to our architects, have a view on X, Y and Z. Oh, the dream to me. It's the dream, because you can have an opinion and it's really useful, and you can say, well, you can have this to help with this, and you know, or I've done this before and that definitely won't work, and residents will hate that, and it's things that architects will not have thought about before. So yeah, it's a real education and just a collaboration. I think it's just so important to have that collaboration. And again, if they going to the leaseholders as well and having those focus points, say, what do you like? You know, going out to your customers, say, what do you like about your development? Do you like the technology? How would you make it better?
And do you think, you know, when you mentioned obviously the earlier the better in that conversation, I guess that's also a cultural, you know, shift that needs to happen. And I guess how can we improve that as well?
I think it is improving. It's definitely on a journey. I have, you know, been introduced in some few meetings, and they're like, why is the managing agent here? And then you might add value to the meeting, and they're like, oh, okay, you know. But you know, it's just that, and I think a lot of managing agents want to and don't charge much for their getting involved early, because it makes their life easier down the road. So that would be the main reason to get involved. You will know everything about that building, and so you will do a better job at managing it. But yeah, you know, the people building those buildings have to recognize that they are going to let go of that building at some point. Sometimes they don't let go completely, sometimes they do, but if they do want to let go completely and sell the freehold and continue to have happy customers, because their name will always be attached to that building because they built it. So they've got to, you know, set it up properly so it can be managed to the best of its ability.
Yeah, that collaboration is key, I think, isn't it, at that early stage? And hopefully, you know, things are changing, because, you know, things are becoming more complicated, and so you need to bring in the specialists and get that collaboration, don't you? Whereas perhaps, you know, before it was easier for somebody to just make all those decisions and there you go, it's built, off you go. There's so much more integration now, and you know, you need that collaboration, I think, between various specialists. Yeah,
it's also an interesting point, because in the past, if you were a property owner, it was your tenant, you know, the corporate tenant, that you would have to keep happy, and you know, customer service wasn't what it is now anyway. But now it's almost like you've got to actually engage with everybody who interfaces with the building. So it's everybody that's working, you know, for the company, anybody that uses the building. So it's all that collaboration part is really, really important.
I think there's a big focus on, as well as, you know, it's not just about the FM side, it's all about the community and making communities and building communities now as well. So you can, you know, great, you can do X, Y, and Z, but how are people don't communicate. Well, you know, particularly during lockdown, we couldn't communicate by just going knocking on our neighbour's door. People communicate through WhatsApp and through lots of different apps, through their social media. So there has to be an aspect of that for me where people can, you know, have a view on things. Obviously, you know, if things aren't going well, you don't want a place where people can just, you know, complain, but you want to be able to have a conversation and be able to communicate. If you're not going to be able to do it in person, and there's again large developments, or there's just a lot of investors from outside of the UK now. You know, developers go out to sell in the East particularly, and you know, so, and you know, you're not always going to be able to get that person on the phone for that conversation, but to be able to communicate to leaseholders well, I think is really important. And then, yeah, like I say, create that community on those, because it's not just a block of apartments, it's gyms, there's lots of commercial outlets, there's beautiful squares and green spaces that you can create events on, and the technology has to have a big hand in that to be able to do those things well, I think.
It's why the persona piece is really important at the strategy stage. It's understanding the customers and the people that you're serving. And we do a lot of engagement when we're building strategies for our clients to understand, you know, who is this targeted at, who is important in this, and then how can technology support them, and then what are your priorities for putting that into the building. And you can do that at a number of lenses. So we've done a strategy for a mixed use development. So we've understood, you know, the types of residents that are likely to be living there, the types of people that are likely to be visiting that area to use the shops that are there, or the retail experience, and also the office workers. So who are the target occupiers that you are looking to do? And again, you're not always going to be able to get it from the, you know, the individuals. You can't go and do lots of focus groups necessarily, but the idea of specialists, like we've got a lot of experience from doing this elsewhere. We know what works well, what doesn't work well, and can really help have conversations to draw out the problem statements and then the role of technology in supporting those.
Actually,
Nikki, oh, sorry, Susan.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you know, how you're talking about, you know, the persona, and a point somebody made to me about, you know, the future of, you know, office work and the hybrid working, which I hadn't thought about, was, will we end up with the people that come in every day, the extroverts who just, you know, thrive on company and meetings and everything, and then the introverts who are really happy sitting on their own, you know, in a room, won't come in. So you're going to end up with sort of different type of personalities who actually are in the office using the facilities.
We actually looked at that when we were doing Henrietta House, and whether people were extroverted, introverted, you know, whether they were an apprentice or a CEO in the business, they all kind of, those different lenses came into play. Within our office, we also created a library space, which is a quiet focus space where people can go and sit down and have that kind of quiet time. And it was a really important part of us having different areas in the office to service different work styles and different needs. And I think we can roll that out to broader than that. But yeah, it's a great point.
Nikki, did you want to jump in?
Oh, I really, it's really interesting, isn't it, about, you know, different personalities and things. And I think we are seeing, you know, the sort of the younger generation are sort of missing that, where you do need to be with more senior people to sort of learn, that learning by osmosis that we kind of lose when we're all kind of remote working. So yeah, I think there's a balance, isn't there, with hybrid working. I think we're finding our feet on that, and I think it's here to stay, I think, because everybody likes it, don't they, the flexibility of working from home as well as going into the office. I think there's that balance to be struck. But I love the idea of you know, how you've looked at all the different personalities and created those different zones. That's brilliant.
Excellent. I'm just going to touch on our final few points that as part of this session, and sort of ensuring sustainability of technology. I think I know we mentioned it before, and you know we've touched on how we want to make sure that you know it is in there for the long term. It is adopted, you know, all of those things. But I guess what is expected of this, you know, the tech and real estate relationship? I think that, you know, and how do we better communicate those expectations is kind of my first question. Harri, do you want to take that on?
It's an interesting question. So how do we better communicate our expectations?
Yeah,
that was the question boils down. So,
and that goes both ways, by the way. That's not just from, you know, the tech provider to the real estate. I think it's both ways.
I think that when we're dealing with this, again, moving back to the strategy point, knowing what you want to achieve is really important. But actually, as you're coming to the implementation, having a really clear metric or measure of success, so that you have something that you can check back on to see whether it has delivered value, to have that really clear view of the success criteria, so that you can communicate the benefits and how you're then going to use it, so you're properly setting things up for success in terms of a project.
Yeah, and I think you've just got to, you know, have what we discussed before, it's got to be able to adapt, hasn't it? It's got to be able to evolve, and you've got to have that two-way communication. So, you know, coming from the PropTech as like, well, this is where we think we're going, will this work for you? And also the other way around of, this isn't working for me, or actually I would love it, could it do this? And that two-way communication and conversation, really, to sort of move things forward.
if you're not having a two-way communication, something is wrong, or you've not understood the brief, essentially, because if without that communication, the provider is going and doing their own thing, and you're reliant on them to deliver something for them that you probably don't understand as much as you should. And I think what you said there, Nikki, about shaping that future roadmap and the direction and having those conversations, it helps stop that, oh, well, I thought I was getting this on day one. And the other point I think we mentioned earlier around updates, you know, technology does evolve. And so you need to also keep track of all of the technology that you've got out there. It's not as simple as like furniture that you might put into a building, or and it can kind of stay there and gets updated as and when. Like, these are critical pieces of infrastructure. They're vulnerable to things like cybersecurity attacks if you're not updating them, maintaining them. And that's where getting smarter is really important, because some clients I work with, they can't even tell you how much square footage they have in their real estate because their systems are so siloed and disparate. So you need to be able to keep track of everything that you're doing and update it and maintain it for that kind of critical resilience point.
Susan, did you want to mention anything?
Yes, I just, I mean, one of the things I was thinking is how long before we actually drop the expression PropTech and just regard it as, you know, technology, because there is so much within that umbrella term, you know, covering the whole life cycle of real estate. And, you know, it is just, it's technology, and it should just become part of what property companies do, rather than regarding it as something sort of somewhere out there that they need to come to terms with. But I suppose that will, you know, that will happen with time. And then the other thing I've just been thinking about, because I was talking to a property company yesterday, and they were saying that one of the providers that they'd used had gone out of business, so they were a little bit stuck. So I imagine one of the things that one needs to look at quite carefully is the financial, you know, status of the provider, because they're going to be there for the long term. You know, as we were saying, it's not just a question of putting a system in; it's going to be ongoing. It's going to be education. It's going to be maintenance. What to do if they go out of business, and does that preclude us using smaller operators because we feel safer with the larger operators?
Yeah, I think on your first point, certainly, I think we're already starting to see some people change their narrative. You know, some people are saying we don't want to be, you know, just coining PropTech, and we want to be moving on. So I think that's certainly happening. I think the challenge is, I think, until everybody is on the same page, it's going to be a real challenge, and also ensuring we have that understanding of technology. I think the challenge is the sector is still so siloed, as Harri said. I think that is probably the biggest obstacle, if I'm right in saying that, and I guess that's a challenge that the sector needs to overcome in general, really. So it's going to be it's definitely an interesting piece, and we'll just have to see how that evolves. I guess from your perspective, Gemma, do you see kind of technology? Do you think the perception for technology is changing generally in the way it's you know, PropTech is seen, or do you think it's still siloed?
I think there's a way to go, and you know, there's lots of people who just wouldn't even think about not introducing it now. I couldn't agree more with Susan that, you know, you don't get many other industries that have to specifically call their technology something. You know, it should just be there. It's what everybody expects now. You know, I think every demographic expects it now. You know, so it's not something just for the younger generations or anything like that. It's expected across the board. So but yeah, I think, like I say, I think there's a lot of people who would not think about building a complicated building without having the technology to support it. I think it's going to be introduced more on the simpler buildings, and when I say, you know, which may not be staffed and stuff, but I think there'll be more advantages to that as well in the future. I feel like that's where we could catch up a little bit more, where you think, well, what else could I use these products for, and can I use them on small buildings? Is the cost obviously that will prohibit people from putting them in place? But you know, with everything that's going on with health and safety at the moment in the industry, I feel like there will be more technology to come in to support, you know, the golden thread and everything that's coming into play at the moment. So and that's not just to support property managers, but also to give residents and leaseholders reassurance about the health and safety of their building, because, you know, following Grenfell, people are a lot more aware about the health and safety of their building, and they want that reassurance that they are living in a safe building, because I feel that reassurance obviously slipped away a few years ago, and, you know, people question it a lot more, and in some cases they probably should do so. But it's I think there's a lot of areas that can be supported by technology in the property industry that maybe aren't, or only just starting to be supported. So.
I think we've just got a few minutes left, and I know we touched at the beginning about sort of decarbonisation, the ESG agenda. How do you see sort of tech playing its role within that as well? Who was Harri? Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So sustainability ESG agenda is absolutely critical for companies at the moment. And a lot of companies are setting really ambitious, like, net zero carbon targets. But it's really important to understand your baseline, to be able to capture data, to be able to monitor and analyze that data. And that's where technology comes into play really, really well. So how can you consider meeting targets if you haven't got the technology to support your ESG or sustainability strategies and capturing and monitoring that data?
Nikki?
Yeah, I think that's key, isn't it? You know, you really need to know your baseline. You need to know where you're starting from, don't you? And it's quite dangerous, I think, to just come up with these goals if you don't actually know where your starting point is. And I completely agree. Yeah, it's only technology that can help us with that data, isn't it? Completely. And then we can move forward and come up with a achievable goal, because there's not much point if you can't actually practically achieve what you're trying, setting out to do.
Yes, and I mean, what I'm sort of hearing from the PropTech VCs at the moment, I mean, sustainability, climate tech is where people are really focusing and investing. And it also, takes us back to what we were saying about collaboration, because if you're running a building and, you need to monitor, air quality, outputs and everything, you need to be working very closely with your occupiers, because you're going to need to monitor throughout the building. So everybody's got to be on the same page and want to achieve the same goals.
And do you think that technology, obviously the data and the analysis is very important from the starting point, but are people really appreciating how and maximizing technology to ensure that they're facilitating and using it on that pathway, if you like, to the reaching those goals?
Well, I've carry on. Well, I think one of the problems is there is an awful lot of data collected in the real estate sector, and collecting the data is one thing. Actually, analysing it and knowing what it means is something else. And so I think we've probably got a way to go on that. Also, it would be helpful if the industry were more willing to share data, because I think there's still a reluctance to share data, with other parties, and feeling that there may be some value in the data. So I think the sooner we all start sharing, analysing, understanding, and then I suppose in a way it's competitive, because if you're sort of measuring air quality, you're measuring sort of energy use, you're going to be comparing yourself with other similar buildings. So the sooner that we have systems that enable us to do that, and people are prepared to do that, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
more benchmarking.
I think you're spot on there, Susan, as well, where you can't fix data as a whole and you can't integrate data as a whole. You have to know what questions you want to answer first, or the problems you're trying to solve for. I know I sound like a broken record. And then you work backwards from that to say, what is the data needed to support that decision? So as much as you need a digital strategy to say what technologies we're putting in our building, you need a data strategy that sets out those global questions, those problem statements. And then you've got a focused plan for what data sets you integrate, where, how, and how you get insight from your data.
We're always, oh, sorry, go on, Susan,
No,
sorry.
the same problem solved. Harry's absolutely nailed it.
We're almost out of time, but I guess I'm going to just go around the panel and request just a final sort of word, a line on, key. If anybody was taking away kind of a key, takeaway from the session, what would that be? If I could start with Nikki first.
Gosh, well, I think the industries are continually evolving. I think we're on the right path. We just need to make sure that we're all collaborating, communicating, and just, making sure that the built environment is the best it can be, really, for everyone, for occupiers, for clients, for, the efficiencies of managing agents, for the environment. So, yeah.
Harri?
I think I'd say don't wait. The industry is moving forwards. Don't see digital technology as someone else's responsibility. We all have a role to play in shaping the future. And again, that collaboration point, let's come together to see how we can use digital technology to deliver better outcomes for the industry.
Gemma?
Yeah, I agree. It's the collaboration. I think more of it's needed, and we just need to look at these future buildings that are being built and make sure we keep up. I think that's always the hardest part. Technology in the past has always been a few steps behind what's being built, so we need to make sure it's they complement each other from the word go.
And finally, Susan.
I think one of the few positives of the pandemic is that it's been a complete wake-up call. It's shown us that we really need technology to enable us to work in the future, and that combined with the real focus on the climate emergency and the need for technology to help us bring down carbon levels. That has been a positive, and I think really focused everybody's minds, and we know the real estate sector has got to be in the forefront of leading on that.
Lovely. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for taking part this morning. It's been a really enjoyable session, and I feel really privileged to have chaired it, so thank you very much. Thank you to all of you as well for joining and watching. Please obviously keep your eyes peeled for more information about the Aspire series, and if you want any more information about Locale, you can check out the website on www.locale.co.uk, and we'll be in touch very soon about our next session. Thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon.